Hello, everyone. This is an overview of the week's work. I'm on week one, and as we go to learning objectives, you'll see that we're beginning to explore some of the attitudes towards technical and professional writing, um, attitudes, understanding of what the field is. We want to describe some differences between technical and professional. I'll ask you to do that this week, and I will ask you to reflect on the assigned readings and post and respond to others thoroughly and in detail. Here we sort of begin to set up the norms for the course. What constitutes thorough, adequate response versus insufficient responses and the like. When we get into the class one activities, here we go. You should already have seen Introduction to the Course. And then I'll have to add a link to this particular video once I'm finished with it. And then we'll move through these activities, which would normally be, in a class setting. Well, let's see. The very brief form asks you how to pronounce your name. This is going to come in really handy because so I ask you to put your name here and then what you want to be called in discussions, and then how to pronounce it. So if your name were Rebecca, for example, maybe you would put Rub Ek or something like that to help us understand how to pronounce your name. And then this is we'll share that information with people in class. In fact, I'll ask you to do another activity here in a minute that shares information about your name with the class. In this particular profile, it'll be private between you and me, and I'm just asking you to share some information you would like me to know about you as a writer. If you have concerns about the course, concerns about writing, particular issues that you hope that are addressed in the course, please share them here, and I will proceed accordingly. Please don't forget that when you're finished writing in the form to hit the submit button. And if you want a copy sent to yourself, click here. But again, don't forget to click the submit button or you'll have to type it all over again. You can see here that after you submit, you'll get this confirmation and you can change your response or submit another one if you like. It's a fairly informal assignment. You should be able, I believe, to click the back button twice and wind up back here. So the other tool that asks you to talk about your name is here. It's a free tool called Flipgrid, and it requires a password, which I've included back on the site, and it is 3562 hello, and click on go. Here you'll see I have two questions and I've added models of responses. And when you click on that, you'll see the faces of people who have responded. And so this is a nice way for us all to get acquainted. You just click here, agree to the terms, click on allow for your camera, and then you can close that, and then you can take a picture of your head by clicking on this right here. And once that's taken care of, you say looks good, and you can begin recording. Here, please tell us your name and one or more things about yourself that probably no others in class are likely to say about themselves. This is just I'm just trying to encourage everyone to sort of move beyond the my name is Joe and I'm from Minnesota and like that. Maybe something a little more interesting and informative. Not that it's not interesting who you are and where you're from. That's fine stuff, but add a little more if you would. You can get to the second question by clicking on Return to Questions, go to number 2, and do the same thing. All right, and you take your picture and you go back then and answer the question. And in this case, it's asking, what name do you want us to use for you in this class? Same thing I asked you to talk about on the form. This time you get to do it by talking instead of typing. How do we pronounce your name? I gave you an example of of one way to do that, and you can look at that and tell us something that will help us remember your name. So again, this is informal. Have a little fun with this, and that will be that. Back at week 1 class activities, we move forward to the writing for 5 minutes, and I ask you to please read the instructions for the following writing exercise carefully. Here, I realize that it's difficult sometimes to read word for word when you're reading online. We know that people skim the web more than reading carefully. It's a mistake not to read carefully for this course, though, because detail matters, and attention to detail is part of the discipline of technical and professional writing. So I do encourage you to take your time and read this stuff carefully, following the directions and paying attention to the details, because failure to read carefully can cost you in terms of your grade. Details matter because of liability issues when you were writing technical documentation. And it's just good discipline to be careful, to think things through rather than to dash things off in a hurry. So we go to writing for 5 minutes, and in fact, I'm going to ask you to dash something off in a hurry in this case, because it's an exercise about sort of writing to figure out what you think rather than writing to convey something that you already know and want to teach somebody else. This is sort of a discovery process. So let's do some writing. People who like to write are lucky because writing turns out to be not only a good way to get good at writing, but it's a great way to get good at learning. You can read the rest of that introductory, but the idea here is that clear writing is something that we have to do. It's an activity that requires engagement. And so to practice this exercise, I'd like you to do what Jim Carrey is doing, which is to type without stopping. No matter what goes through your mind, don't stop writing for 5 minutes. I'll give you a prompt in a little bit. And your job as a writer in this case is not to get the writing perfect or to say the exactly right thing. The purpose is simply to write to see what happens. So no thinking as in sort of holding your chin up and looking up and pondering things. Don't go back and fix words. Don't change stuff. Just keep plugging away. Some people call this rush writing. Some people call it stream of consciousness. But whatever you call it, don't stop. So if you find yourself thinking, oh, this is really dumb, or I'd rather be eating something, or whatever you think, don't stop. Instead, write, this is really dumb, or I'd rather be eating, and until you get back on track with what you want to say. For this exercise, you don't have to turn in what you've written or share it, but I'll ask you to talk about the experience. This is an exploratory way of writing. It's not something you do when you're trying to create polished work. It's something you do when you want to find out what you think. Okay, so the prompt is, start with the following. Do your best to stay focused on the topic, but don't stop writing. All right, so the prompt is, one fear I have about writing is, and go for 5 minutes. After you finish the 5-minute writing, I'd like you to write about that experience, answering these questions. What do you think of that experience of writing? Um, was it useful to you? Was it interesting? Did you discover something that surprised you? Was it boring? Was it a total waste of time? I'm not looking for. Not everyone enjoys this sort of thing. Some people find it useful for overcoming writer's block. You can't think of what to say. So instead of worrying about getting something wrong or saying the wrong thing, you just sort of dive in, and that can lead to product, productive writing. It doesn't always work, but we'll be studying or using all kinds of tools this semester designed to help you overcome different challenges, and this is the first one. What did you learn about the fear you discussed? What did you learn about your reaction to writing about fear? How is this way of writing more or less productive for you than your typical way of writing? If you can sort of describe your typical way and how this compares to it, that would be interesting to me, because it's always interesting to know how people write. If you go to a specific place, if you have to have music on, if you like noise in the background or silence in the background, that's always really interesting to know. And then based on your experience with the exercise, would you affirm, do you agree, that is, with Emig's claim that writing is a mode of learning, or do you disagree and just tell me what you think about that? And then you can add that what you can do is copy these questions and paste them in here, except you can't do it like that. All right, so just use your keyboard shortcut, Control C and Control V, and now you have that. Don't forget to put your subject line in here, first name, last name. Well, in this case, it's going to be, it'll be all recorded, so you don't have to worry about it. This is just, the subject is what? Writing for 5 minutes. And it'll record all the rest of the information. So in this case, you don't have to include all the other stuff because it will include it for you. And there you go. You post to the forum. Okay, so now I'm back at the activities page, and after the forum, take the week 1 survey. And this asks you some questions about learning online. And it helps me understand the range of interests or experience and attitudes towards online learning and connected learning. And that's why I ask these questions. It also helps me track changes over time of people's attitudes towards these issues, because I'll ask you to take the same survey again at the end of the semester. So that's what this is for. And I don't share your personal information with anyone. I might come up with a summary of the findings, but this is private information that will not be shared with others. And the final item for class activities is the course calendar form, which takes you here. And this is a form that asks you to outline how you're going to spend approximately 7.5 hours a week on the course. So 2.5 hours of class time. Those class activities are designed to take about 2.5 hours a week. And then you want to scope out 5 hours for reading, study, and homework. Now, whether you spend all this time or not, I can't very well monitor. These are just guidelines for what it takes to be successful in the course. You may spend way more than this or less, but that's neither here nor there. All I'm asking you to do for this exercise is to imagine, all right, I know I have time on Monday, and I'm going to start at 10, and I'm going to spend about an hour on Mondays. On Tuesday, I have no time, so I just leave that blank. On Wednesday, I'll be spending 3 hours on major projects for this course, et cetera, until it should add up to roughly 7.5 hours. As I said before, You can obviously throw any numbers around that you want to for this, but again, if you do this carefully with some thought, you'll have a nice plan for yourself. Um, and you'll be sure to have enough time scoped out to do the class well. And don't forget to hit the submit button. And that is the end of week one class activities.